We're going to introduce kind of ethos behind these courses. Then we're going to show you some of the detail, and then we're going to come back at the end and talk about some of the pedagogy and that informs the courses, and maybe some future possibilities as well. So the word leadership is kind of something that's everywhere, not just about the voluntary organisations, but almost about kind of all ills in society. You know, the answer is always we need more leadership. Okay, but the kind of answer to what is leadership is often missing. It's a kind of empty signifier, we call it in the business, right? It means everything and nothing all at the same time. And part of what these courses are doing is kind of answering the question that leadership is about a kind of practice and an energy and a direction we can all give together when we engage in organisations and across organisations. And so that's the kind of ethos that underlines these courses. And kind of in that spirit, these are open access free courses, and that's because we think and we hold very strongly that leadership is something that can be shared by anyone inside voluntary organisations, volunteers, trustees, managers and so on and so forth. And it's not good enough actually just to push leadership aside onto chief executives or chairs and so on and so forth, because that kind of abdicates the responsibility for the future of organisations in the sector. So that's the kind of ethos that informs the courses, and I guess we're trying to live that ethos through the way we structure these courses as well. So I think, Carol, you're going to give a quick overview, aren't you, of...
Can we click on?
Yeah, I can click on it. There you go.
Okay, so my task is to introduce to you the two new courses that we are launching on the 31st of October. The first is Introducing Leadership in Voluntary Organisations. The second with a specific emphasis on collaborative leadership in voluntary organisations. As Owain has explained, the courses will be online. They will be free. They are designed to be accessible courses, and you can start them at any date. So this is not a scenario where you have to wait till a course starts and then start as a cohort. Individuals will be able to move through the material at their timescale and relative to their particular context, which is really important for us. And the other thing, as Owain explained, is that these are for leaders at all levels. Owain's mentioned that we've both worked in the voluntary sector. I've worked in the sector for a long time. I worked in the public sector as well. And to be honest, it was really difficult in the voluntary sector to access personal development. And so this, to me, is just, I feel so personally about it, as Deborah shared earlier, that this is a tremendous opportunity for access to leadership development. And I have in my mind the young person who's starting out in the sector. I mean, these are designed for people at all levels, but very much that person who doesn't have leadership in their title, doesn't have a management role, but has to get on and make things happen, using Steve's definition of leadership, make things happen across boundaries, with other organisations, with people in different teams, without often formal authority. So we want these courses to be accessible to people at many different levels. They're an opportunity to focus on the practices of leadership. These courses are not, you will see we're going to show you the outlines, and they're not primarily focused on your personal attributes. They're about practice and practices. And they're very much engaging with the current context as we understand it, and giving people opportunities to engage with their specific context as well. So you'll see in a minute that the courses are full of case material, with many thanks to some people in the room who contributed AV content for us. Thank you to those who are here and those who are not here. And also allow people to engage with their own context and to bring the questions of leadership to their own circumstances.
So that's what the courses look like. But a really important part of both courses is that we have an active discussion forum. So throughout here, we ask you to go off and conduct activities, little experiments at work, little engagements, leadership engagements you can have, and then you come back and either reflect in your private learning journals or in kind of discussion forums and have a kind of debate. So the idea is that we almost generate a kind of leadership community, learning community amongst people in the sector. That's the idea. So let's get back to the presentation. We'll tell you a little bit about both courses. I'm going to start off by talking about the first course, which is called Introducing Leadership in Voluntary Organisations. And as the title suggests, this is a kind of introduction to the idea and concept of leadership, the different ways leadership is spoken about, the different ways we consume leadership, I suppose, and how we respond to that and how we can build something a bit different as well. So this is about thinking, noticing and engaging with leadership differently. And very importantly, it's about practices. So the whole thing is very practical. So every week we introduce a different practice to allow you to go away and try something different at work. Trying something might be noticing something a bit differently, having a different kind of conversation with people, listening to something in a different way, paying attention to something in a different way, or it could be something much more hands-on, like having a different kind of conversation with people or trying out a new idea. We really try to mess with kind of conventional ideas of what people regard as leadership. Leadership's often very closely linked with powerful individual heroes. Actually, that's quite a Western and fairly recent phenomenon as well in Western sort of social and political and organisational history. So we try and kind of toy with that idea and gradually introduce a critique of always retreating to the sort of ego of the self-leader and try and create something a bit different. Which is why I suppose we introduce ethics as a really important driving force in leadership, this idea that your purpose and your ethics can actually do real leadership work for you. And we end by talking about leadership as a practice. So by practice, I mean, look, when I hop down here, I'm changing the dynamics of the room. So it's not just me doing the leadership, it's you doing the leadership by participating with me and by the fact we're in this room which creates a certain ambience and the fact that it's got a history behind it, right, this building, and so on and so forth. And we can change practices by toying with different things in a kind of network of leadership. So that's basically where we conclude the course. But the real, I suppose, meat of our offering comes in the second course, which is a badged course on collaborative leadership, which Carol's going to talk about.
The badged course means that at the end, literally, you can download a confirmation that you've achieved the course and can take that into your CPD for the year if you need to do that, if that's helpful. The second course is 24 hours of learning over 8 weeks, although again, the student can move through those weeks as they determine. It is written around a fictionalised case study, and this is an audio case study in which an individual, this has been recorded for us by an actress, and that actress talks in what's really a kind of audio blog about the experience of leading in a very, very complex situation and some of the realities of that and some of the realities of working that out in a particular community. So for each section of the course, the student will listen to that audio and then engage with the activities. And we hope that will be a really useful resource. It's written out of our experience, both our own experiences and the stories that many people have told us, both in our research and in our practice. So we hope that people will find that useful. And it surfaces some of these tensions and dilemmas that are the reality of leaders' day-to-day experiences. Again, this is an approach that looks beyond that lone, heroic, individual model of leadership to talk about working with other people and working across boundaries, across individual boundaries, team boundaries, organisational boundaries, sector boundaries. So we're very much looking at the kind of ideas that Steve shared with us earlier today. And the outline of the course is here. So basically, again, we start with literally thinking about collaborative leadership, beginning to unpick with people what they mean and what we might mean. We share with them some different ideas that are around in the literature. And then you'll see that we work through really starting with the individual and their own identity and how they think of their identity in terms of leadership and in terms of working within a sector organisation. And also then thinking about the identity of others and working with difference. So this is, I think it's fair to say, this is not a view of collaboration that is cuddly. Unlike your quote, it actually is quite tough. We work through thinking about how you ask very difficult questions, ensuring that the difficult questions don't just disappear because we're all collaborating with each other and it's all really nice, and so we fail to say the things that we need to say. And so we work through with our students, how do you engage with those really tough questions and how do you surface really difficult issues and yet still continue to collaborate together. And so we end the course, we think about organisational boundaries and sector boundaries, but we end the course by thinking about how you keep on collaborating even through all of these difficulties and uncertainties and these changing structures of collaboration that go on around us. How do you keep on keeping on collaborating over the longer term and over so many different forms and structures of collaboration? That's the structure of the second course.
Yeah, so perfectly on time, I'll end with a kind of note on the pedagogy adopted, which is, I guess, reflective of the kind of leadership we talk about, which is, you know, leadership it can be thought of as like a skin rather than just a jacket you put on and take off when you go to work. It's something all-consuming. And we think about the pedagogy of this course not really as education as much as development. And that means that we've all got skin in the game, that the course relies on the learners as much as it does on that stuff that we wrote, you know, months ago, that we invested lots in. But that's really only kind of a third at most of the importance of this. So this is about you really driving the learning and about creating a community with skin in the game. And that's the kind of developmental ethos that sits behind it. And who knows what this will become? I think that's one of the most exciting things about opening up leadership development. You know, leadership development is often sort of something very elitist and costly, and often, frankly, just a total waste of time. You know, just about pampering the egos of like very senior people to absolutely no effect. You know, or it creates all kinds of insecurities and so on. But so making this stuff, just pushing this stuff out there free onto the internet is kind of an experiment, and it's going to be really quite exciting to see where it goes.